Imagine taking a world-class opera singer, someone who can effortlessly hit those glass-shattering high notes. Right before they step out onto the stage, you just wrap a thick, heavy wool winter scarf tightly around their face.
Well, I mean, they'd still project noise, but it would be entirely restrained. You'd lose all the nuance, the character, and, the distinct color of their voice.
Right, you get the notes, but you totally lose the soul. And when you look at the modern Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R, specifically the 2024 and newer models with that huge, bulky black stock muffler hanging off the side, it looks like the engineers were forced to wrap a heavy winter scarf around a beautiful inline-4 engine.
Yeah, but that's just the reality of modern engineering constraints. We want optimization, but strict emission and noise regulations sort of force manufacturers into these really heavy compromises.
Exactly. So welcome to this custom deep dive. We know you're a learner. You want to cut through the endless forum debates, skip the confusing technical spec sheets, and just get straight to the mechanics of the matter.
Right, to the point. Exactly. Today, our mission is to settle the ultimate aftermarket exhaust debate for the Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R. We are putting two legendary giants head-to-head. We've got Akrapovic and Yoshimura.
It's a classic East meets West scenario. The engineering philosophies of these two brands, they intertwine in some really compelling ways.
They really do. And we have a deep stack of sources today to unpack. We're pulling from passionate Reddit community threads, specifically in RS6R and RSC07, analyzing official technical specs from BikeBiz and Yoshimura R&D, poring over dyno data, and even looking at the raw reaction of an unboxing video from a YouTube channel called MZ.
Because, this goes far beyond just making a motorcycle louder. For a ZX6R rider, altering the exhaust is really about redefining the bike's mechanical personality.
That's huge.
Right. It changes physical handling through weight reduction, and it basically forces you to navigate the complex engineering of modern emission controls. So let's start with the physical reality of the bike as it rolls off the showroom floor. Because taking an exhaust off a modern ZX6R isn't just unbolting a pipe and slapping a shiny new one on, right? There is a huge bottleneck hiding underneath the motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. The factory pre-chamber. In the motorcycle community, it's pretty notoriously referred to as the bread box.
The bread box. I mean, the name alone just sounds heavy.
Well, it weighs a substantial amount. It sits low beneath the bike, right before the muffler, and it is essentially a dense metal labyrinth.
What's actually inside it?
Inside that box, you've got baffles, chamber, and catalytic materials. Its primary job is to trap sound waves and burn off unburned hydrocarbons before they ever reach the actual muffler.
Wow.
Yeah, it handles about 90% of the motorcycle's total sound dampening.
Wait, 90%? So the bread box is doing all the heavy lifting?
Pretty much all of it.
That makes me wonder about all the riders I see buying basic slip-on exhausts. If the pre-chamber is catching that much noise, does a standard slip-on even change anything, or are people just paying for a cosmetic metal tube?
Honest answer. If you leave the bread box in place, a basic slip-on muffler is largely just an aesthetic upgrade.
Ouch. Really?
Yeah. I mean, it might slightly alter the tone, perhaps lowering the pitch a tiny fraction, but it absolutely cannot drastically increase the volume or unleash the true sound of that engine. The physical barrier of the pre-chamber is just too dense.
That seems to be the root of a major debate in the Reddit sources we looked at. You have riders looking for an affordable way to get more sound, so they buy these really short, inexpensive exhaust cans.
Right, the ones you often find on eBay for like $100.
Exactly. But the forum veterans strongly advise against it. Why is that?
Well, the short versus long can debate is a total staple of motorcycle forums. Those short cans give the bike an aggressive, stubby MotoGP look, but you just cannot cheat the physics of sound. An engine produces a really wide spectrum of acoustic frequencies, and a lot of them are incredibly harsh.
So the short can basically just act like a megaphone for those harsh vibrations.
Essentially, yes. A premium longer exhaust can actually has internal volume. That physical length provides the necessary acoustic real estate.
To do what, exactly?
Well, inside there's a perforated core wrapped in sound-absorbing packing material, like fiberglass or ceramic wool. So as the exhaust gases travel down the long tube, the high-frequency, harsh sound waves expand outward through the perforations.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and the packing material absorbs that acoustic energy and converts it into heat.
So it acts like a low-pass filter.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It filters out the irritating high pitches. Short cans just lack that physical volume, Without enough packing material to absorb those frequencies, the sound waves just bounce straight out.
And then you get that awful sound.
Right. The result is an ear-splitting resonant drone, especially when you're just holding a steady RPM at highway speeds. It's agonizing.
Okay, so if the short cans give you a headache and the standard slip-ons are basically just cosmetic because of the bread box, how are riders actually bypassing this without dropping a couple of $1,000s on an entirely new exhaust system from the engine headers back?
They look for bypass, and that is where Yoshimura's approach to the ZX6R is just really clever. They offer the Yoshimura AT2, but they market it specifically as a 34 system.
A 34 system, so it's sitting somewhere between a slip-on and a full system.
Right. A standard slip-on only replaces the rear muffler. A full system requires unbolting the exhaust headers directly from the engine block, which, is a really labor-intensive job.
Yeah, nobody wants to mess with the headers if they don't have to.
Exactly. The 34 system sits right in the sweet spot. You keep your factory headers, the pipes coming straight out of the engine, but the kit includes a specially engineered link pipe.
Ah, okay.
And this pipe is designed to bolt onto the headers and physically replace the heavy bread box entirely.
You just cut out the middleman entirely. Looking at the specs from Yoshimura R&D, the physical difference is dramatic.
Yeah.
The stock exhaust setup weighs 16.1 pounds,
Right.
and the Yoshimura AT2 drops the total weight down to 5.3 pounds.
You're literally removing nearly 11 pounds of metal from the motorcycle.
That has to change how the bike actually feels underneath you, right?
Oh, absolutely. It
Wow.
changes the physics of leaning the motorcycle. That factory bread box and muffler sit on the lower right side of the bike.
Yeah.
When you remove 11 pounds of static mass from one side, you alter the center of gravity. As you initiate a turn, there's less weight resisting that roll momentum.
So it turns easier.
Right. The bike will feel noticeably more flickable and responsive when transitioning from left to right through a chicane or, just a tight canyon road.
And the build quality seems to match the engineering, too. The sources highlight that it's designed and made in the USA, featuring their works finish on the stainless steel,
Yeah.
capped off with this really nice matte carbon fiber end cap.
It's a beautiful piece of hardware.
But the real question is the sound. If we delete the bread box with this 34 system, what does it actually sound like?
Based on the acoustic data and basically the universal consensus across the forums, deleting the prechamber with the AT2 creates a very distinct auditory signature. At idle, it provides a deep, throaty, bass-heavy rumble.
It's a very muscular sound profile.
It really is. But, a premium exhaust is defined by how it behaves under load. As you roll on the throttle and push toward that 14,000 RPM red line, the bass doesn't just turn into a raspy clatter.
Right.
It smooths out into a clean, high-frequency scream. It complements the high-revving nature of the inline-4 without crossing into the territory of just obnoxious noise.
I can completely see why that's a popular choice.
Yeah.
It solves the bread box problem, drops the weight, and gives you a deep tone right out of the box.
Yeah, it's very plug and play.
But let's look at the other side of this rivalry. Akrapovic is universally treated as the crown jewel of motorcycle exhausts. But I'm looking at these prices and I kind of have to be skeptical.
Fair enough.
If Yoshimura does all of that for a fraction of the cost, why are people paying such a massive premium for Akrapovic? Are you literally just paying for a European racing logo?
Well, no, you are paying for an absolute obsession with metallurgy and microscopic tolerances. Akrapovic is deeply rooted in top-tier racing. They supply teams in MotoGP and World Superbike.
Wow.
Yeah, they actually manufacture their own titanium alloys in-house because standard aerospace-grade titanium just isn't heat-resistant enough for their standards.
You definitely see that reverence in the community. In the YouTube video source from C, he's unboxing an Akrapovic system, and the physical reaction is telling.
He was giddy. Right.
Totally giddy. He's hunting for the instruction manuals, admiring the hand-laid carbon fiber and looking at the welds. And the welds look like they were laid down by a robotic arm, just perfectly uniform.
It is functional jewelry. But the acoustic philosophy is entirely different from Yoshimura. While Yoshimura leans into that muscular American bass, Akrapovic engineers for the pure GP sound.
The track frequency.
Yes. It starts with a refined, subtle bass at idle, but when you open the throttle, it unleashes a crisp, melodic, Formula One-like inline-4 shriek at the top end.
Man, that sounds incredible.
It is. The frequency is cleaner, higher, and just much more exotic.
But wait, I need to stop you there because there's a huge contradiction in the research.
Oh!
You said earlier that Akrapovic is a premium brand, but you also mentioned that a standard slip-on doesn't remove the bread box. So if I drop top dollar on an Akrapovic slip-on, am I stuck with a quiet bike Why would anyone buy that?
Okay, that is a vital detail that catches so many new riders off guard, and it comes down to international law.
Well,
Yes, Akrapovic is a European company, and they engineer their standard slip-on to be homologated. Homologation means it strictly complies with European Union noise and emission regulations.
and those are strict.
Incredibly stringent.
So they have to leave the bread box alone to stay legal.
Correct. Because the slip-on retains that massive factory sound damper, it remains very quiet. In fact, many riders report the homologated Akrapovic slip-on sounds almost identical to the stock volume.
That's wild. You spend all that money, it looks gorgeous, but it basically whispers.
Exactly. If you want to unleash that F1 scream, you cannot stop at the slip-on. You have to commit. You must either purchase a separate optional titanium link pipe to physically bypass the breadbox,
Or go all the way.
right, you invest in the complete, full Akrapovic exhaust system.
That's a heavy commitment.
Mm.
But if a rider decides to go all in on the full carbon or titanium system, the performance data from BikeBiz is pretty staggering.
Oh, the full system completely transforms the machine. You're looking at a 66.1% reduction in exhaust weight.
That's insane.
Yeah, that is 7.4 kilograms or over 16 pounds completely stripped from the motorcycle.
Dropping 16 pounds is huge, but what about the actual engine performance? Like, do you feel a difference when you twist the throttle?
The dyno-proven gains for the full system are really significant for a middleweight sport bike. It yields an increase of 9.8 horsepower at 14,600 RPM and 5.0 newton-meters of torque at 6,400 RPM.
Let's break down why those specific numbers matter, though. The top-end horsepower is great for a track straightaway, but a 5 newton-meter bump at 6,400 RPM seems crucial for just everyday riding.
It changes the real-world drivability entirely. See, the ZX6R uses a unique 636cc engine rather than a pure 600cc displacement.
Right, the famous 636.
Exactly. That extra 36cc gives the engine a slightly longer stroke, which translates to more mid-range punch. By installing the full system, you alter the exhaust gas velocity. The perfectly tuned headers scavenge exhaust gases out of the combustion chamber much more efficiently.
Scavenging, that's essentially the exhaust pulses pulling the next cycle of air and fuel into the engine faster, right?
Precisely. That improved volumetric efficiency perfectly complements the 636cc mid-range. It gives you the power exactly where you need it when driving out of a corner on the street, and then lets the engine breathe freely all the way to the red line.
So we have two distinct paths here. You have the throaty Yoshimura with its clever 34 hack for immediate results, and you have the exotic Akrapovic that demands a bigger commitment, but rewards you with GP-level engineering and top-end power.
Exactly.
But stepping away from the dyno charts, the reality of actually installing either of these systems introduces a completely different mechanical headache.
Oh, yes. Because the modern sport bike is essentially a rolling computer, you can no longer just unbolt metal parts and expect the machine to blindly accept the change.
Yeah, the Reddit community threads are filled with warnings about the installation process. Specifically, the moment you remove the stock exhaust, you immediately run into the factory servo motor.
Right, the servo motor. It's a small electronic actuator bolted to the frame. Its job is to control a physical butterfly valve located inside the stock exhaust piping.
Wait.
The bike's computer, the ECU, commands this motor to open and close the valve at specific RPMs.
Now, a lot of people assume that valve is just there to create back pressure for low-end torque. Is that true?
Well, back pressure is a bit of a myth in modern performance tuning. What you actually want is exhaust gas velocity.
Oh.
The valve restricts the pipe diameter at low RPMs to keep the velocity of the escaping gases high. But its secondary and often primary purpose on modern bikes is to physically choke the exhaust noise at the specific RPM ranges where government noise emission tests are conducted.
Right, so they're cheating the test a little bit. So when you pull the stock exhaust off, the butterfly valve goes with it. The cables are disconnected. But that little electronic servo motor is still bolted to the bike, spinning a pulley connected to absolutely nothing.
And if a rider decides to just unplug the motor and throw it in the trash, they immediately trigger a cascade of electronic warnings.
The dreaded check engine light.
Yeah.
But why does the bike care if a disconnected motor is missing?
It comes down to basic circuitry. The motorcycle's ECU constantly sends a small 5-volt reference signal through the wiring harness to the servo motor.
Just checking if it's there.
Right. It expects a specific amount of electrical resistance to return. When you unplug the motor, you break the circuit. The ECU detects infinite resistance, assumes a critical component has failed, and triggers the check engine light on the dashboard.
I saw a few writers on the forums trying to cheat the system. One user, Red Tanks, mentioned that if you just leave the useless servo motor plugged into the wiring harness under your fairings, letting the pulley spin freely, the light won't trigger.
Yeah, I've seen that. It keeps the electrical circuit closed, which satisfies the computer, but it leaves a redundant, heavy electronic motor taking up valuable space under your seat.
So what's the real fix?
The accepted hardware solution across the community is a small plug-and-play device known as a servo buddy.
It's basically a dummy plug. Right.
Exactly. You remove the servo motor completely. You take the servo buddy, which is no larger than a flash drive, and plug it directly into the wiring harness.
And it fools the ECU.
Yep. Inside that little plastic casing is a resistor. It mimics the exact electrical resistance of the original motor. The ECU sends its 5-volt signal, the resistor sends back the correct voltage drop, and the computer assumes everything is functioning normally.
That's brilliant. But the forums revealed an even more sophisticated solution. A user named Crazy Cam Kalani pointed out that you don't even need physical hardware to trick the bike. You can solve it with software by getting the ECU flashed.
Yes, this is the definitive route for performance tuning. You physically remove the brain of the motorcycle, the engine control unit, and send it to a specialized tuning shop, like 2WDW.
What are they actually changing in the code when they do that?
They literally rewrite the operating system of the motorcycle. They access the internal software and simply delete the command loop looking for the servo motor.
Wow.
They tell the computer the motor no longer exists. You can throw the motor away, plug absolutely nothing into the harness, and the dashboard remains clear.
It's like updating a PC's operating system, so it stops searching for a piece of hardware you uninstalled months ago.
That is a perfect analogy. But the ECU flash does far more than just hide an error light. When you install an Akrapovic or Yoshimura exhaust, you drastically change the flow dynamics of the engine.
Right, because the engine is now moving air out much faster.
Exactly. If you don't update the software, the bike will continue to inject fuel based on the old restrictive factory exhaust parameters.
Which means the engine might run too lean, getting too much air and not enough fuel.
Yes, and that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So the tuner goes into the digital fuel maps and adjusts the air-fuel ratio at every single RPM range to perfectly match the geometry of your new exhaust.
That's incredible.
It ensures the engine runs safely at optimal temperatures and actually delivers that promised horsepower to the rear wheel.
You are calibrating the brain to match the new lungs.
You're harmonizing the entire system.
So, looking at the entire landscape of this debate, choosing between these setups isn't just about picking a part number. It is about deciding the overarching philosophy of your motorcycle.
Very true.
If you're looking for an immediate, muscular American bass tone, and you want the clever engineering of a 34 system that deletes the breadbox without requiring you to tear apart the headers, the Yoshimura AT2 seems like the definitive answer.
I agree. And if your pursuit is uncompromising performance, if you demand MotoGP-level titanium craftsmanship, massive top-end horsepower, and that exotic high-frequency scream,
And you're willing to pay for it.
and you're willing to navigate the complexities of link pipes or full systems to get there, Akrapovic really stands alone.
It really just comes down to what kind of frequency you want to conduct with your right wrist.
It does, but, analyzing how the community solves that servo motor issue leaves me considering a broader implication.
Like what?
Well, we see how a tuning shop can rewrite a few lines of code to delete error lights, adjust fuel maps, and completely change how the engine responds to a new exhaust.
Yeah, it is essentially digital magic happening behind the scenes.
It raises a compelling question. If adjusting the digital parameters can so profoundly alter the physical power delivery and behavior of the engine, what other mechanical capabilities are currently lying dormant inside your motorcycle?
Well, wow.
Right. What true performance limits are simply locked away behind lines of factory code, just waiting for the right software to unleash them?
Or are we riding mechanical engines constrained by physics, or are we riding software platforms restricted by code? That is an incredible thought. Something for you to consider the next time you twist the key and watch that digital dashboard light up. That is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Keep asking questions, learner.